Aren't you all going to Teddy's to celebrate the divorce? Charlize mom asked, peering into Daniel Louis's office. Charlize, a beautiful blonde, held her breath as Daniel lifted his head and looked at her with reddened eyes. He ran his hand over the stack of papers and tried to smile. Honestly, they just needed an excuse to buy wings and beer. My failure as a husband is hardly worth celebrating, is it? He smiled sadly. I don't know all the details to know which of you failed as a husband and which of you failed as a wife, Charlize said, peering into his warm brown eyes. Wow, that's a perfect HR answer, he smiled. What can I say? Charlize gave a strained smile. I'm good at my job. You know what? If you keep looking at this, Daniel jabbed his finger at his divorce decree again, it's not going to make it better. Though her snow-white hair was gathered in a large bundle, a strand of blonde hair fell forward. Charlize moved it out of sight, and her 32nd-sized breasts pressed against the tight blouse. She nodded in agreement. That's right. That's right. When I divorced Sean, sitting around feeling sorry for myself didn't make me any less divorced, Charlize agreed. You know, Casa Ole's has pretty good margarita pizza, and I like their steak fajitas, Daniel said, standing up. Want to join me? Charlize was on the verge of saying no, but then looked into his hopeful eyes. She held up one finger. Give me a minute. I need to make a call, she agreed and turned around. Daniel picked up his vinyl briefcase and folded into it a thick stack of legal documents that confirmed that he and Betta Lewis were no longer husband and wife. Betta could go back to Stepping Stone, Louisiana, become Betta Wright again. She could go anywhere, do anything she wanted. She was no longer Daniel Lewis's problem. Walking out of his office, Daniel looked at the sign next to the door, Daniel Lewis, and under his name on the brass plaque read, Marketing Manager. Marketing Manager, Mom, Daniel thought to himself. Not bad for a man who's too stupid to tie his shoelaces. But how's your precious Christopher doing? A rustle of clothing tipped him off that someone was approaching, and Daniel turned. His jaw dropped as Charlize approached him. She had managed to free her long blonde curls from a severe bun and changed out of her boring pantsuit into a tight-fitting red strappy top and knee-length black skirt. In 5-inch heels, she was almost the same height as Daniel. Ready? Charlize smiled, taking his right hand in hers. My God, she doesn't even have a bra under that thing, Daniel thought as Charlize's impressive breasts pressed against his bicep. Don't tense up, don't tense up. I hope you don't mind, but I'd feel better if we drove my car, Charlize admitted as they exited the Boyd building into the adjacent parking lot. No, that makes sense, Daniel agreed as she led him past an F-150 pickup truck. Is this yours? Daniel stared at the 1,965-year-old Ford Mustang. Uh-huh, Charlize agreed, unlocking the passenger door. Well, it's true. It belonged to my father, but... And how did you manage to get your hands on the keys? Danielle asked as Charlize began to circle the car. Danielle sat up and reached over to unlock her door. She climbed in, showing off a wide thigh in her stockings. That wasn't easy, Charlize smiled sadly. Danielle realized that Charlize didn't want to give details about how she became the owner of a classic car, so she didn't insist. She drove them to a fancy Mexican restaurant, and they joined a small line of people waiting for a seat. Most of the diners were just like them, business professionals looking to start the weekend with spicy food and frozen alcoholic drinks. The line moved quickly, and within 10 minutes they were seated at a table with menus in hand. Daniel already knew what he wanted, but decided to see if anything new had been added. Margarita Fridays, Daniel read on the small insert on the menu. Blue. Have you ever had a blue margarita? No, have you? No. Charlize smiled as the attractive red-headed waitress placed a basket of chips and a small bowl of salsa in front of them. Daniel ordered a 12-ounce blue margarita and grumbled when Charlize ordered an unsweetened iced tea. The waitress hurriedly removed herself to place the drink order. Great. Now I'm going to feel rowdy sipping margaritas while you drink iced tea, Daniel complained. Hey, I'm driving, remember? I ordered 20 ounces. Maybe next time, okay? Charlize assured him. Okay, Daniel smiled, imagining there would be a next time with the blonde beauty as well. He nodded contentedly as the waitress brought his drink and a glass of ice water. Daniel raised his glass and took a sip. "May I?" Charlize asked when Daniel nodded with satisfaction. Daniel studied Charlize's beautiful face as she gracefully took a sip of his drink. When she tilted her head and pursed her lips in concentration, he admired her square face, large hazel eyes under perfect blonde eyebrows, thin nose, and full lips. When she shrugged and smiled, her teeth were perfectly white and even. Her face, throat, and shoulders were lightly tanned. Her breasts strained beneath the thin material of her top, and Daniel was ready to swear. He could see the outlines of hard nipples and wrinkled areolas peeking through the stretchy, blood-red material. "I like it," Charlize agreed, then looked up as the waitress approached. "3 enchiladas, please, with chicken." "Gracias," their red-headed waitress said. "Señor?" "Steak fajita," Daniel ordered, smirking as the red-headed waitress used the Spanish. "So, Daniel, why do you say you failed as a husband?" Charlize asked quietly as the waitress stepped away. Daniel told Charlize about meeting Bet Wright on the campus of the University of Louisiana at DeGard. Truth be told, they had little in common. She was a mediocre student, the oldest of 3 daughters growing up in a trailer in Stepping Stone, Louisiana. He grew up the youngest child in the family, 3 sisters and 1 older brother. His sisters had custody of him, while his brother bullied and tormented him mercilessly. Since he could not fight back physically, Daniel fought back by getting straight A's in school. Despite the care of Angelica, Alexa, and Helena, Daniel's mother liked to joke that after 3 daughters and Christopher, she was too exhausted to pay Daniel any attention. Friends and relatives laughed or nodded understandingly, but Daniel didn't care to laugh when his mother ignored him. Richard, their father, when he was home, was a good and loving man, but when Daniel turned 6, his parents divorced and Richard just stopped coming over. Charlize asked after a long silence. "On straight A's. I got all A's," Daniel confirmed. "My roommate drags me to a party, and 10 minutes later, this cute girl runs up to me and pours beer all over me." "Works every time," Charlize giggled. "Do you know how many cute guys I've met doing that in Connolly?" Daniel laughed out loud at Charlize's confession. The food arrived, and he told her how much Betta really wanted a diamond engagement ring. "You know, something she can show her mom, her sisters, and all her friends at Stepping Stone," Danielle said, and groaned with pleasure as she tasted the juicy fajita steak. "Were you at the engagement ring stage at this time?" Charlize asked. "I guess." Daniel shrugged. She was the first girl who wasn't interested in Christopher and didn't spend all her time looking at him and watching his every move. "No, Danielle, were you ready for an engagement? It's a simple yes or no question," Charlize said, looking at him intently with her hazel eyes. "No, not really," Daniel admitted, but she got her $19,000 ring. I got my diploma. She'd flown out by then, and we were living in the Camelot apartments. "In what?" "Sean and I lived in a 3x2 apartment," Charlize said. "No kidding. We were in a 207 overlooking the pool. Remember when Harry sent 3 of us to a conference in Santa Rosa?" Danielle said. Charlize confirmed as she picked at some beans and rice on her fork. Charlize watched as Daniel talked about how he entered his apartment, walked into the bedroom, and found his wife in bed with not 1, but 2 men. She studied his eyes as he described the horrific beatings inflicted by these men and his wife sitting quietly in bed watching. "Thank God Mrs. Knudsen lived next door," Daniel said. "I'm sure they would have killed me if the cops hadn't shown up." Charlize remembered how Daniel had shown up at work a few days after the ill-fated convention. His eyes were blackened and his nose was covered with a thick Band-Aid. She looked at his nose and noticed that the surgical work had been masterfully done. "Would you like dessert? We have an incredible chocolate flan," the waitress offered. "Maybe if I hadn't eaten all those chips," Charlize smiled. Daniel paid the bill, left a generous tip, and helped Charlize up from her seat. She noted that he left half of his blue margarita, to which he shrugged. "Oh, my ex-husband would ask what's wrong with you," Charlize chuckled, taking his right hand in hers. "Oh, Betta would have just finished it for me," Daniel agreed. Outside, an older man offered Charlize $50,000 for her Mustang. She smiled radiantly and admitted that it belonged to her father, and she wouldn't part with it for any money. Pulling up next to his pickup truck, Charlize thanked Daniel for a wonderful dinner. Daniel was surprised that she knew which car belonged to him. There were several cars parked in the multi-level parking lot. But all thoughts of anything vanished when the beautiful 23-year-old leaned over and pressed her lips to his. Her arms wrapped around his neck, and she plunged her enchilada-flavored tongue into his mouth. "Thank you," Charlize whispered, breaking their kiss. Are you kidding?" Daniel said hoarsely. "No, ma'am, thank you." She kissed him again, pressing her full breasts against him. Daniel resisted the urge to grab her breasts, pinch and pull at her hard nipples. "Hey, do you like Italian food? Have you ever been to Benito's? Do you want to go there tomorrow night?" Danielle asked. "I can't." Charlize smiled easily. "I canceled with Samantha. We were supposed to go to the Carrie Heber exhibit at the Lopez Center. She's an artist from Mindy, Arkansas. Anyway, we were supposed to go there tonight, but I canceled our date to go with you." Charlize kissed him again and then leaned back in her seat. Daniel resisted the urge to correct his raging erection as he opened the car door. "But maybe next Friday. Or next Saturday. Think of something all three of us can do together, okay?" Charlize said, "You, me, and Samantha, okay?" "Yep," Daniel agreed, closing the classic car door. "Hey, Danielle, calm down. It's not like you asked her to cancel her date with her boyfriend," he consoled himself as he got into his truck. "Hell, you didn't even know she had a boyfriend," he continued, starting the car. "But that Samantha's a lucky bastard, huh?" he thought, remembering Charlize's passionate kisses and the feel of her breasts pressing against him. Daniel shuddered as he made his way from the apartment complex parking lot to his apartment. There were 2 obese women swimming in the pool, which was too chlorinated. Daniel wondered who even dared to sell oversized bikini thongs. As he closed his apartment door, he thought about who might have bought them. "Well, apparently these 2 did," he said, shuddering again, and parodied the Guns N' Roses song, Paradise City. "Oh, take me to the city of cellulite, where the thighs are wide and the girls aren't pretty." Opening his briefcase, Daniel saw the legal papers again. Main de seize. He wondered what Betta had thought when she received those papers. Then, pushing thoughts of his ex-wife out of his mind, he thought again of the beautiful Charlize Baum. On Monday morning, as Daniel prepared a cup of green tea with a big spoonful of wild honey, several Boyd Investment Group employees watched Charlize inundate Daniel with stories about the Carrie Heber exhibit. She used the words powerful and provocative the most. Danielle noted that Charlize never once used the word beautiful. "Well, I guess some of it is beautiful in its raw simplicity," Charlize said thoughtfully. Saying "see you later," Charlize skipped out of the dining hall. Several men stared after her slender figure. Some men and women looked at Daniel questioningly, some even with hostility. The human resources assistant had gained a reputation in the office as the Ice Queen. Charlize had erected a high and solid wall around her, and beyond it she had dug a deep moat filled with fire-breathing dragons. A few men dared to ask her out, but were politely but firmly rebuffed. Those who wouldn't take no for an answer soon left Boyd Investment Group. At 4 o'clock, Charlize peeked into Daniel's office. He looked up from his handwritten notes and smiled. She answered him with a warm smile. Some mocked Daniel for his habit of writing notes by hand instead of typing them on the computer, but he claimed it helped him organize his thoughts and formulate clear, coherent ideas and plans. "Do you like red beans and rice? Samantha is making that dish tonight. For some reason, we always have Monday as red beans and rice day," Charlize asked. Yeah, I know," Daniel replied. "My grandmother? On your mother's side of the family? Oh my goodness, just unbelievable." "Well, do you want to join us?" Charlize invited. "It might not be as good as your grandmother's, but—" "Absolutely," Daniel agreed, and Charlize smiled happily. She gave him the address of her apartment in the Lambert condominium, leaning across the table. Daniel struggled to keep his gaze on her face rather than her cleavage. He realized from the glint in her eyes that she was posing on purpose. "I think I passed that test," Danielle smiled as Charlize popped out of his office. "You're just going to love Samantha, Charlize assured Daniel as she opened the condo door. I know, I definitely love her. Oh, flowers. Oh, Danielle, you didn't have to do that. I might like Samantha. I might even want to have a couple beers with him. But I doubt I'll ever love him, Daniel thought as he followed Charlize into the condo. She had managed to change out of her strict business suit into a tank top and yoga pants. Daniel wondered why they called her a wife jersey. He knew that on the TV shows Cops or Police Live, husbands usually wore such t-shirts with dirty jeans. But Daniel also often saw NASCAR t-shirts, tattered flannel shirts, and shirtless torsos. Daniel admired the tiny black panties that showed through his yoga pants. He followed Charlize as she turned the corner and stood in the brightly lit room, holding a vase of flowers he'd bought at Burns & Burns grocery store. Look, Samantha, he brought us flowers, Charlize said. And some cold St. Elizabeth beer, Daniel added, wondering if Charlize knew that her light brown areolas and hard nipples were visible through her tank top. Oh, look at them. They're beautiful, he heard an enthusiastic musical voice say. Entering the kitchen, Daniel saw a beautiful young woman at the stove. Her long blonde hair was streaked with auburn strands of what many called dirty blonde. She was also wearing yoga pants and a tank top. She was the same height as Charlize, and it looked like they had a similar build, with slightly darker skin and a round face. Her eyes were a deep chocolate color that his mom would call doe eyes. Just waiting for the drop biscuits to be ready. You said you brought beer? Samantha smiled at Daniel. Yeah, St. Elizabeth's. Hope that's okay, said Daniel, wondering if Samantha knew her dark nipples were visible through her tank top. A lot of people drink Gratchley's, but I think it's pretty gross. Bottom shelf space, Samantha said, nodding towards to the refrigerator. We've still got, yeah. Charlize laughed, finding 4 mugs of frosting in the freezer. Samantha, right? Daniel asked, pouring the cold beer into one of the glasses offered to him. Well, it's actually Henrietta, but she's just not Henrietta, is she? Charlize said, holding out the second mug to him. All weekend, Charlize just couldn't keep quiet about you, Samantha said as she served the food. Me? Asked Daniel with genuine surprise. Yes, you, Charlize said as she placed her hand on his forearm. But now that I see those eyes, who can blame her? Samantha added. They ate in the dining room. Daniel made a pig of himself by eating a second plate and 4 drop biscuits. A woman likes it when her man appreciates her cooking, Samantha said. Her man? Daniel thought as Samantha and Charlize cleared the table. Danielle, what do you put in your coffee? Charlize asked. Decaf, Samantha echoed from the depths of the narrow kitchen. 2 creams, 1 sugar, said Danielle, and Samantha made her butterscotch cheesecake. Oh my God, I'm getting fat. It's all her fault, enthused Charlize, carrying a tray with 3 mugs of coffee. Olive you? Asked Danielle, reading the inscription on the ceramic coffee mug. Oh, this is so unexpected. But I love you too, teased Charlize. Oh, marveled Danielle, then smiled widely. Olive Woo, I love you, cutie. A minute later, Samantha entered the dining room with 3 plates of cheesecake on a tray. Danielle, see how I put the gun to her head? Samantha smiled. See how I'm making her eat it? Like I'm going to be able to say no, Charlize complained. Oh my God, it's so delicious, enthused Danielle. The creamy filling had a hint of tartness to it. Danielle was willing to bet Samantha had added sour cream to it, but the rich butterscotch made up for the tartness of the cream. It would be too rich without the sour cream, Danielle said aloud. Right, Samantha agreed. Well, it's a work night, Samantha said, taking the empty plate and mug from Danielle. So we're kicking you out, Charlize acknowledged, taking her plate and mug. I'm really glad you came, Samantha said from the threshold of the dining room. She's expecting a goodnight kiss, whispered Charlize loudly to Daniel. Charlize, maybe she doesn't want to kiss me, suggested Samantha, blushing hotly. Daniel smiled and stood up. He knew that physical injuries healed faster than emotional ones, thanks to years of taunts and bullying from his older brother. Even if he wasn't attracted to this beautiful girl, Daniel would do his best not to hurt her feelings. But in reality, He was really attracted to Charlize's roommate, and Samantha almost as much. "I've been trying to figure out how I could get a kiss from you," Daniel told Samantha. "A kiss and not look like a jerk in front of Charlize." He walked over to Samantha and took her small hands in his. She looked down at their joined hands. "Oh, big hands. You know what they say about men with big hands?" Samantha stuttered. Daniel could clearly see her areolas and hard nipples through her tight tank top. He gently lifted her chin and smiled, looking into her eyes. "Yeah, if we wear big gloves," Daniel suggested, and she giggled nervously. Danielle wanted their kiss to be simple. Samantha pressed her lips to his, then opened her mouth and licked his lips. When he opened his mouth, she slipped her tongue inside and sucked hard on his tongue. "Good night. Thank you so much for inviting me," Daniel whispered, gently touching her lips with his. "Good night," Samantha whispered, then turned and disappeared up the stairs. Danielle watched her ravishing figure walk up the stairs. The yoga pants were slightly see-through, and he could see her tanned flesh beneath the thin material. The panties were a pale pink thong that framed her lush buttocks beautifully. "I knew you'd like it," Charlize said enthusiastically, joining Daniel. "What's not to like?" agreed Daniel. "I'm so glad you came," whispered Charlize at the door. "Me too," Daniel agreed. Charlize wrapped her arms around his torso, pressing her braless breasts against him. Her kiss was careless, but passionate. "Good night," Charlize whispered again and gently pushed Daniel out of the apartment. On Tuesday morning, the usual crowd gathered in the break room, and Charlize greeted Daniel enthusiastically. Colleagues were puzzled to see them eating lunch together. Daniel was amused as colleagues took turns peeking into his office throughout the day, giving him a thumbs up. By Wednesday, a few people dared to ask him about their relationship. Daniel was an honest man, which helped him beat out other applicants for the marketing manager position. Harry Boyd himself, who interviewed him, appreciated his honest answers. Daniel wasn't afraid to admit that he didn't know everything and was open to learning. So, when asked about his relationship with Charlize, he honestly said he didn't know what that relationship was, but he noted that he really enjoys their developing friendship. "So, did you manage to melt the Ice Queen?" Tamahonki, Bradley Whitaker, who recently moved from Great Oak, Texas, asked, standing in the doorway of Daniel's office. "You know what? I really don't like you talking about my friend like that," Daniel snapped back. "Charlize Baum is a warm and genuine person. If you can't understand that, that's your problem. Now go. You're not being paid to hang around my office." "You are the sweetest man," Charlize marveled when they met for a coffee break at 4 o'clock. "Everyone in AA is so jealous of me," she giggled warmly in Daniel's ear. "No, they're the ones who are jealous of me," Daniel smiled. On Thursday morning, Bradley Whitaker frowned when Charlize invited Daniel to dinner. Daniel smiled. He noticed the 3 administrative assistants looking at him and Charlize with stars in their eyes, and the 4 men with envious smiles. "Samantha's making lasagna," Charlize said enthusiastically. "You thought red beans and rice was delicious? Just wait. Just wait." "I'm there." "Oh, and tell Samantha I'll get some wine," Daniel agreed. "It'll make me fat," Charlize joked as she opened the condo door. "Yes, I have that ability, Charlize. No, you're not the one taking a fork and shoving it in your face. That's all me," Samantha echoed from the kitchen. "She's making blueberry pies for dessert. Who can resist homemade blueberry pies with vanilla frosting?" Charlize demanded, kissing Daniel passionately. "Oh, you're such a victim. Let's all feel sorry for Charlize." "Hi, sweetie," Samantha smiled as Daniel entered the kitchen, carrying a large bottle of red wine. "Hi." Danielle smiled and leaned in to kiss Samantha when she pressed her lips together in invitation. "God, this smells incredible." "She makes her own pasta. Can you believe it?" Charlize said, gently stroking Samantha's back. "Who makes their own pasta anyway?" "Store wine is so flavorless," Samantha remarked, fumbling for a corkscrew. "Babe, do we have a corkscrew?" "Don't worry, I have an army knife," Daniel said, pulling out his Swiss Army knife. Knowing there would be dessert, Daniel tried not to overeat. Although he would have liked to, Samantha used fresh garlic and olive oil when cooking the pasta sheets. "A woman likes it when her man appreciates her cooking," Samantha smiled and kissed Daniel as she got up from the table. "I knew she'd like you," Charlize said enthusiastically, grabbing Daniel's hand. The fresh blueberry tarts were restaurant quality, as far as Danielle could tell. Samantha's lasagna was top-notch too. It even surpassed his mother's lasagna, which Daniel always thought was the best in the world. "Okay, it's a work night," Samantha announced as Daniel finished his pastries. "So we're kicking you out. But you have to come up with something for the three of us to do. And no, not a movie," Charlize added. "Something where we can get to know each other better." "So, good night," Samantha said, standing in the dining room doorway. "She's expecting a goodnight kiss," Charlize whispered loudly. "Shut up, Charlize," Samantha giggled nervously. Danielle gave Samantha a warm, tender kiss. She opened her mouth and Danielle gently kissed her sweet, blueberry tongue. Samantha sighed as Danielle pulled her tightly against her. "Good night," she said and headed up the stairs. "I think she likes you," Charlize hummed as she walked Danielle to the front door. "I know I like you," she whispered and kissed him wetly. Charlize purred as Daniel's hand stroked her t-shirt-clad back. Oh, I think you'd better leave," Charlize gasped as Daniel boldly ran his hand over her breast. Kissing him passionately again, Charlize led Daniel out of the condominium. That evening, the three of them made themselves comfortable in Daniel's pickup truck and headed to Hop Kim's Chinese restaurant. The trio enjoyed their meal, deftly wielding chopsticks and sampling each other's dishes. They then headed to Courtyard Bowling Alley, which was located next to the Courtyard Mall in Pinawaca, Louisiana. Charlize hadn't bowled since she was a teenager, and for Samantha it was the first time. Bowling was a great way for the three of them to get to know each other better. It fostered friendly competition, heartfelt applause, and encouragement. They took turns playing, first Samantha, then Charlize, and last of all, Danielle. As Samantha stood up, trying to line up for the perfect throw, Charlize leaned against Danielle and whispered, her warm breath touching his ear. "My mother was a beautiful blonde who loved my father, me and my sisters with all her heart," Charlize said, then applauded Samantha's three-barrel salvo. "She never said, and my dad never said, but the reason they divorced was because my mom was a lesbian," Charlize shared, then got up to play. "This is fun," Samantha giggled happily, leaning against Daniel's other side. "Yeah, bowling is a place where no one asks you to be quiet," Daniel remarked. Samantha wrapped her arms around his torso and pressed herself against his full chest, kissed his cheek, then rested her head on his shoulder. "Ha! Beat that!" Charlize exclaimed, knocking down 5 pins. Daniel smiled and picked up a bowling ball. Since the establishment was only a few months old, the lanes were still quite slippery, the shoes were stiff, and the balls were free of chips and scuffs. Daniel wondered how long it would be before the establishment was as run down as the Bowlerama in Bender, Louisiana. Cautiously, he managed to knock down 1 pin. His second throw was a ball into the chute. "Ha!" Samantha teased him as he walked by. Samantha shrieked and laughed, receiving a light spank on her firm buttocks. Charlize smiled as he sat down next to her. "I saw your office," Charlize reminded him. It's nice." "Oh, hey, I've never seen your office," Daniel said. "And I've seen all those bowling trophies on your shelf," Charlize giggled and kissed him. Charlize shared a story with Danielle about how she lost her beautiful, wonderful, loving mom one morning in a horrible car accident. Charlize was at that point in her awkward transformation from a girl to a young woman and was in great need of a mother. "Daddy married Miss Wendy, and no one doubted that she loved us girls," Charlize continued, then patted Samantha's 2 balloons. "You'll do better next time, sweetie." "You'll do better," Daniel agreed as Samantha lowered herself to the floor and snuggled up to him. While Charlize tried to visualize the perfect throw, Samantha distracted Daniel. Her large breasts pressed against him, her warm breath touched his ear, and her small hand rested on his thigh. Despite this, Daniel managed to stand up and knock down 5 pins. "High school, college, and then I found out my dad had cancer," Charlize recounted. "I really needed my mom." She recounted how Roger fought cancer, but ultimately lost the battle, and in the midst of that chaos, she met Sean Goldman. "He made me laugh. He always seemed to know what to say," Charlize murmured. Valerie, Charlize's mother, made sure that Charlize, Alexandra, and Kendra didn't need anything. Valerie was very wealthy, thanks in part to her father's assets. Thoughtful investments and sound estate planning multiplied Valerie's wealth. Miss Wendy inherited half of Roger's estate as his wife. The remainder was divided among Charlize, Alexa, and Kendra. As the eldest, Charlize was given the right to be the first to dispose of her father's classic car collection. "I was with him when he bought that Mustang," Charlize whispered. "I told him it was my car." "And now it's your car," Daniel said, bestowing a light kiss on her. "Look, see, exclaimed Samantha. 7 pins. "You're getting better and better at this," Daniel praised as a satisfied Samantha sat down next to him, snuggling up against him. "Was she talking about me?" asked Samantha, but kissed Daniel before he could say anything. Charlize's squeal alerted them to the fact that she had accidentally managed to whip out a backup. Samantha put her arms around the girl and, in front of the 20-odd visitors and employees, kissed Charlize on the lips. Charlize smiled, hugged, and kissed Daniel. "It's called a strike, right?" enthused Charlize. "Right? I have a strike?" "Actually, it's a backup." Daniel smiled and managed to knock down 3 pins. Charlize told Daniel that after her father died, Sean announced that he was moving back to his hometown, DeGard. Charlize experienced a real panic. She had just buried her father, she had no mother, and now her boyfriend, her mainstay, was also leaving. In desperation, Charlize proposed a marriage. Thankfully, Sean agreed. However, Charlize was not naive and insisted on a prenup. "We're going to be together forever, so you can put anything in there," Sean said with a smile. Nick Maynard, one of her father's assistants, helped Charlize and Sean draw up the contract. Noticing that Sean often looked at Linda, the firm's beautiful and intelligent secretary, Charlize inserted a last-minute marital fidelity clause. Sean reiterated that they would be together forever and signed the contract without hesitation. Sean rented an apartment at the prestigious Camelot Apartments in Bender, Louisiana. 2 months later, on a beautiful Saturday in May, Charlize became Mrs. Goldman. The couple honeymooned at Marina del Grande Agua, a small villa on the west coast of Mexico. Charlize never wondered how they were able to afford such an extravagant vacation. Until their wedding night, Charlize managed to preserve her maiden honor. In Marina del Grande Agua, she discovered that she adored sex and craved it. She was thrilled to learn that suntan lotion could be used for other purposes as well. "Are you going bowling?" Samantha teased Daniel as he sat wide-eyed. "Give me a minute," Daniel moaned. He smiled and then laughed as he heard the delighted squeals and giggles of Samantha and Charlize behind him. A gasping "Charlize, well, don't!" also made him laugh when he finally managed 2 balls out of the gutter. Back home in the spacious apartment decorated with Sean's tasteful selection of expensive furniture, Charlize discovered that they owed nearly 3 months' rent. O'Neill's threatened to take away their furniture, and St. Elizabeth's Utilities sent a notice of arrears. Then came the honeymoon bill. "And of course, Sean didn't have a job," Charlize muttered. "Oh, he said he was looking." But in reality, he and his buddies Woody and Ricky were meeting at night, claiming they had a business that would make millions. The 3 men, Sean, Woody, and Ricky, met regularly at Charlize's apartment at Camelot, as Sean had rented it in Charlize's name. They devoured hors d'oeuvres and drank all the alcohol as they discussed go-to-market strategy, securities, and labor-intensive organizations. Charlize tried to talk sense into Sean at first. They had no product, no service, and no viable product. When told several times to mind her own business, Charlize confronted Woody, Ricky, and Sean. Armed with the food and alcohol bills they had consumed over the past 2 weeks, she asked when she could hope to recoup her investment in RWM Strategical Management, Ltd. "So, never," Charlize concluded after Ricky's rambling and nonsensical explanation of the nature of their mission. "The next RWM meeting should be held at your house, Ricky." Charlize then learned that Ricky's wife wouldn't let him drink. Woody was still living with his parents, who believed he was clean, sober, and attending AA meetings, when in fact he was at Sean's apartment. Their first fight as husband and wife occurred when Charlize blocked their credit cards. Their second spat occurred when Charlize refused Woody and Ricky entry to her apartment. "We're on the cusp of success. Months of planning are about to come to fruition," Sean stated earnestly. "Then meet at the library, at Jitters, or behind the dumpster at Casa Ole," Charlize snapped back. "But you won't be meeting here, eating my food and drinking my alcohol." "Oh, I see, Sean." Ricky grinned. "Now it's clear who wears the underpants and who wears the underpants in this marriage." When the apartment manager informed Charlize that the 6-month lease was coming to an end, she decided not to renew. Sean whined, begged, threatened, and sulked. Charlize told him that he could renew the lease in his name, but not hers. Sean claimed that his credit rating had suffered because of a mix-up with another Sean Goldman. But Charlize wasn't moved by that. Sean objected to moving from an upscale apartment to a 1-bedroom trailer in Kimball, Louisiana. Charlize simply informed him that she was moving, and since the furniture was in her name, she was moving with her. Sean's mother and father still lived in Bender, Louisiana, nearby, and Sean could move in with them if living in a trailer was so unacceptable to his feelings. 2 days after his 21st birthday, which Sean had forgotten to even think about, Charlize came home from her job at Boyd Investments to find her husband wallowing Daisy Upchurch on their bed. Sean's triumphant grin turned into a frown when Charlize wasn't upset. He frowned and became wary when Charlize reminded him of the prenup they'd signed. "But that was in Texas," Sean objected, "and we're in Louisiana, and the Napoleonic Code applies here, so the prenup is invalid." Selma Jones of the firm Richards, Pellichet & Jones burst into laughter upon hearing this from Charlize. After studying the document, Selma and Charlize drafted a petition to dissolve the marriage between Matthew Goldman and Charlize Baum. Sean's attorney, Jason Johnson, became furious when he learned that Charlize had inherited from her mother and father before the marriage. The 50% Sean could hope for was 50% of the debts he had accumulated. Sean moved back in with his parents, which ended any hope that RWM Strategic Management, Ltd., would ever be a viable corporation. The Goldmans despised Ricky and banned him from their home. "So, hero," Vernon Goldman said to his son after 2 months of him staying with them, "you've got 2 weeks, 14 days to get a job that's stable and gainful, not this nonsense Ricky Heber sold you, a real job." "I'm looking," Sean lied, finishing a large serving of Frosted Flakes cereal. "Well, enough looking. It's time to find one. 14 days, and you'll be looking for a new place to live," Vernon said. "You would put your own son out?" Sean asked, stunned. "We birthed you, fed you, sent you to school, and then finally you got married," said Shirley Goldman, standing behind Vernon. "Our work? Finished." When Sean announced that he'd found a job at a professional dry cleaner, Charlize wasn't happy. Although his chronic unemployment was a problem, the reason for the divorce was his infidelity. "Your turn," Samantha told Charlize after she made 2 throws. Charlize was thrilled when she knocked down 3 pins on the first throw and 3 more on the second. Danielle, Samantha, and many other men enjoyed her dance of joy. Danielle knocked down 4 pins and sat down again. Samantha gave him a tender, long kiss. Shortly after Sean left their trailer, there was a midnight commotion at a neighboring house. Charlize cheerfully told Daniel how embarrassed Sean felt about a remark made by Mitchell, an obviously homosexual neighbor. Danielle smiled sympathetically and applauded when Samantha managed to knock down 7 pins. Her next throw, however, ended up in the gutter. "But after the Watsons moved out and Buddy cleaned things up, the Michaels moved in," Charlize continued. "Samantha, how many of you were there?" "Me, my mom, my 3 sisters, and—" "Make no mistake, Danny." Samantha shrugged. "Make no mistake, Danny." Daniel interjected, smirking at the thought of his older brother Christopher, a little angel in their mother's eyes. Christopher knew this and was certainly taking advantage of it. Samantha answered him with the same smirk, leaning against him. Charlize watched as the new family moved in. After a couple of days, when they had settled in, she stopped by the neighbors and introduced herself. Her iced chocolate cake was happily received, and Janice Michaels, the mother of the family, laughed merrily when Charlize admitted that the cake was purchased at Burns & Burns grocers. "I know where the kitchen is. I've never been burned. But knock on wood anyway," Charlize said. "But cooking isn't my forte." "Well, honey, not everyone is good at it," Janice replied. "I'm sure most men are willing to overlook it." Charlize came home one Friday afternoon after a long work week and saw Henrietta, the Michaels' oldest daughter, sitting outside with her legs hanging off the edge of the small porch in front of the trailer. The 18-year-old waved Charlize back in greeting. Charlize walked over and asked her what was wrong. "Nothing," Henrietta admitted. "Really? Isn't Kimball Academy, where you go to school, having their spring ceremony today?" Charlize asked. "Uh-huh," Henrietta confirmed glumly. "So why aren't you dressed and ready to go?" Charlize continued. "Miss Charlize, am I fat?" Henrietta pointed to her plump body. "Yes, you're a couple pounds over what most people consider acceptable." Charlize shrugged. "But your face, and oh my God, those beautiful eyes. So when do you plan on getting ready?" "Miss Charlize, no one asked me," Henrietta admitted sorrowfully. "Well, their loss is my gain." Charlize smiled as she helped Henrietta up. Charlize told Janice that she and Henrietta would have a sleepover. Scary movies, frozen pizza, ice cream, and sitting up late. Janice said Henrietta could stay home, and she herself would go to a sleepover at a neighbor's house. "So, what kind of pizza do you like? Don't tell me mushroom. Mushrooms are so gross. Sean loved mushrooms, and I can't stand them," Charlize said, as she and Henrietta drove to the Burns & Burns grocer's grocery store. "He always said, 'Take them off, but ooh, you can still taste them.' They bought some frozen pizzas and a large tube of Daniel's Burns & Burns orange sherbet, Henrietta's absolute favorite. Charlize smiled sympathetically when Henrietta admitted that she'd never tried it because Rocky Road was Danny's favorite treat, and the twins liked strawberry. "That's why I take the gallon thingy," Charlize said, snuggling up to Henrietta. "And yes, I know what you mean. My mom loved, adored mint chocolate, and Kendra, the baby, and Kendra loved double chocolate." "Miss Charlize, what do you like?" Henrietta asked as they pushed the cart through the store. "Anything," Charlize shrugged, not wanting to admit that Rocky Road was her favorite treat. "And Henrietta, please stop calling me Miss Charlize. God, do you know how old it makes me feel?" She picked up several packages of Burns & Burns Supreme Cinnamon Rolls. Charlize didn't joke with Janice about her poor culinary abilities. In the beer and spirits department, Charlize bought a bottle of Artigas tequila. Henrietta quietly asked if she could buy a 6-pack of Gratchley beer, and Charlize put it in the cart. "So, first things first," Charlize said when they got back to the trailer. "We need to change into our pajamas and start the sleepover." In the bedroom, Charlize picked out a cute camisole and matching panties. Without thinking, she stripped naked and got into her sleepwear. With 3 sisters and a mom, Henrietta didn't hesitate to strip down to her panties, t-shirt, and faded bra. She slipped into Garrett Hartley's number 5 Orleans Saints jersey and ran into the living room with Charlize. "Have you ever watched The Call?" asked Charlize, pushing the buttons on the TV remote. "Unless it's Cartoon Network or soccer," said Henrietta. Charlize made them pineapple juice, orange juice, and tequila. The beer still wasn't cold enough. Then, huddled together under a fleece blanket, they began watching a scary movie. After 40 minutes, Charlize started making one of the pizzas. During the well scene, Charlize and Henrietta screamed and huddled together. The final television scene caused more screaming, and they pressed themselves against each other. Charlize put on Ring 2, and they drank a cold beer. When Henrietta set aside the empty can of beer, Charlize set out 2 large bowls of orange sherbet. Now, shivering from the cold, they huddled together under a fleece blanket in the dark living room. And at the end of the second scary movie, Henrietta kissed Charlize gently, lips to lips. Charlize opened her mouth and drew Henrietta's tongue into hers, flavored with beer and orange sorbet. Charlize's hand, which had been resting against Henrietta's soft belly throughout the movie, now slid under her tank top and gently caressed Henrietta's flesh. All my life I knew I was my mother's daughter, Charlize confessed to Daniel, placing her small hand on his thigh. Are you a lesbian? Concluded Daniel, looking into Charlize's hazel eyes. Bi. Very, very bi, Charlize admitted, then rose to her feet. When Miss Charlize came over to introduce herself, Samantha continued, I wanted to hate her. How can you be so beautiful and not be a bitch? Oh, I've seen girls like her all my life. They're all smiles and sweetness to your face, and then they stab you in the back as hard as they can. Uh-huh, Daniel agreed, thinking that some boys, some men, were like that. In the few weeks of living next door to the beautiful Charlize Baum, Henrietta had noticed that Charlize's smiles and greetings never changed. Not once did Henrietta notice the underlying trace of hostility that she had always noticed in bee mothers and their obedient chickens. Charlize seemed a genuinely warm woman. When I was 5, I went to kindergarten, the big girls' school, Charlize told Henrietta, and her hazel eyes warmed at the memory. My mom sat me down and told me she was so proud of me. Her big girl. She just knew I would be the prettiest girl and the smartest. Valerie instilled in Charlize that, smart or not, pretty or not, she should never make fun of others. Some children may be fat, but it is wrong to make fun of them. Some children may not know their ABCs, but instead of making fun of them, Charlize should try to help them. I miss my mom, Charlize confided to Henrietta as they sat on the steps outside the Michaels' trailer. She sounds like an amazing woman, Henrietta agreed. Watching scary movies, feeling Charlize's body heat pressed so close to her as they cuddled under the fluffy fleece blanket, was exciting, frightening, thrilling. Confusing to Henrietta. At school, her friends were crazy about Clay Craggle, Kincaid Bridges Roberts, and other popular boys. They were all vying for positions in Ashley St. Gary's periphery. Henrietta didn't understand the appeal of the flighty, pretentious, and narcissistic men of Kimball Academy's upper clique. When their outer shell is stripped away, what remains is emptiness, Henrietta thought as she looked at the reigning classmates. But sitting next to Charlize Baum, nestled bare leg against bare leg, Henrietta thought she would finally understand how her friends felt when they longed for one boy or another. The fact that Charlize was not a boy confused and frightened Henrietta. Unable to bear the clash of thoughts and emotions any longer, Henrietta acted on her feelings. She pressed a clumsy, soft kiss to Charlize's lips. Charlize responded to the kiss by opening her mouth and sucking Henrietta's tongue into her mouth. The awkward kiss turned into awkward touching. Henrietta felt Charlize's hand on her exposed flesh under her shirt. Henrietta gasped as Charlize's hand touched Henrietta's nipple and began to play with it. The bed is much better than this couch, Charlize whispered. Okay, Henrietta agreed, her voice barely audible, squeaky. On Charlize's soft bed, the two young women lay kissing. With their hands, they touched and caressed each other. In the morning, Charlize woke Henrietta with gentle kisses. Afterward, Charlize made cinnamon rolls. She shared 3 large gooey brownies with Henrietta and kept 2 for herself. Charlize then spread the canned frosting on Henrietta's right nipple. Is it time for you to go already? Asked Charlize. Oh, my mom was furious. Saturday is time for a big house cleaning. Samantha laughed in Daniel's ear. But after we started dating first, Charlize whispered in Daniel's other ear, I started calling her Samantha, just because she's not Henrietta, right? Daniel stammered as 2 pairs of lips gently touched his earlobes. Now it's your turn to bowl, Charlize joked lightly in his ear. Daniel threw 2 balls toward the funnel. The first ball was accidental. The second ball was purposeful. Then he sat down, and a giggling Samantha stood up. What did she tell you? Asked Charlize, but she had already enveloped him in a hot kiss. 9? I have 9 of them, exclaimed Samantha. I think that's... Yes, this is our last... What did you call it? Said Charlize, standing up. Frame, said Daniel, putting his arm around Samantha, who hugged him happily. I got 9, nanny, nanny, boo-boo, sang Samantha, and Daniel laughed. Did you have fun? The older woman asked as Daniel returned their shoes to the counter. Yes, ma'am, absolutely, Daniel agreed, picking up 3 pairs of shoes. Helping Samantha into the truck, Danielle nonchalantly patted her juicy buttock. Yeah, that cook, Milt Duhan? He'll be at Bricks in Jazz Beach tomorrow, said Samantha, suddenly nervous as Danielle started the truck. Yeah? Asked Danielle. Yeah, he's going to bake an apple pie, said Samantha. Every pie sold will bring money to St. Elizabeth's Animal Shelter. Danielle, asked Charlize excitedly, are you going to take me to get apple pie? What about me? Demanded Samantha. Will I be able to pick that up too? I promise you that you will, Daniel said, putting his hand on Samantha's thigh and leaning over the console of his truck. I'll never leave you, do you hear me? Do you want to get coffee? Offered Samantha. Me, Samantha, are you sure? Asked Charlize in a choked voice. I just heard him, Samantha confirmed. He'll never leave me. With delight, Charlize kissed Samantha. Daniel had to remind himself of the road as the two beauties kissed passionately in the passenger seat of his truck. I knew you'd like him, Charlize said happily as they broke the kiss. Yay, Charlize was right. Again, let's all be for Charlize, teased Samantha, and then giggled when Charlize pinched her ass. Danielle wasn't surprised that no one went into the kitchen for coffee. Instead, Charlize walked over to the bar and poured 3 small glasses of brandy. He nodded approvingly, looking at the label of Syrah apple brandy, an excellent and affordable after-dinner liqueur. Samantha pulled Daniel toward the couch. She sat him down in the center and settled herself on the cushion to his left. Charlize lowered herself onto the cushion to his right and snuggled down heavily. I remember we went to a Mexican restaurant. Charlize breathed quietly into Daniel's ear. I knew you were right. Samantha whispered in Daniel's ear as well. She leaned over to him and kissed his neck. Daniel found himself in a quandary with his glass in his hand. He wanted to hug Samantha. He wanted to hug Charlize, but one hand was occupied with the glass, and Samantha's other hand was clutching his body, and Charlize's other hand was almost motionless. Here, cooed Charlize as Samantha kissed Daniel on the lips with a hint of brandy flavor. Charlize took the glass from Daniel's hands and set it and her own on the coffee table. Then she gently pulled Samantha away and pressed her lips to Daniel's. Daniel twitched slightly as Charlize poured some brandy into his mouth. Her tongue followed the brandy into his mouth. She pulled away and handed Daniel her glass. I won't say no, Charlize offered, kissing him again. Daniel took a sip of the rich brandy and pressed himself against Charlize's lips. She put her arms around his neck and opened her mouth. Here, Danielle, do you want some? Whispered Samantha, taking a drink of her brandy. Danielle sighed as Samantha pressed herself against him. Her soft lips lay on his, then she kissed him passionately and shared her brandy, pouring it into his mouth. Would you like a drink? Asked Daniel quietly before kissing her. Moaned Samantha in response. Daniel poured her another mouthful of brandy. It didn't surprise him when he felt Charlize's bare breasts press against his other hand while he and Samantha kissed. Do I need to take the bottle upstairs? Cooed Charlize as Daniel finished his drink during their kiss. No, I want to be 100% sober, replied Danielle. I want to know that this is reality and not some drunken dream. You're so sweet, Samantha whispered. I told you you'd like him, said Charlize, helping them both stand up. Are you sure about this? Asked Daniel as Samantha climbed the first step. Are you sure about this? He asked, opening his eyes wide. I am, oh God, yes, but I just want to make sure it's what you all want, said Danielle. Charlize marveled. Yeah, I want it, spoke Samantha, looking pleadingly at Danielle. I want it too, Daniel said and kissed her gently. Satisfied, Samantha led their movement. Daniel admired her lush buttocks in her tight jeans, her thighs tensing and relaxing. At the top of the stairs, Samantha turned left and entered the room. Daniel followed her into the dark room and smiled as he watched the lighter light and then the candle come to life. Candlelight is so romantic, Charlize said quietly as Samantha lit the 7 or 8 candles placed around the room. The dark curtains on the window were doing their job. The only light in the room was the candles and the aperture of the open door. Charlize closed the door behind her, plunging the room completely into darkness. Watching the two beautiful blondes undress was a breathtaking sight. As they kissed and caressed each other under the flickering candlelight, it was an erotic sight for Daniel, who froze in place until both women were naked in front of him. His brain only began to function when both beauties turned their attention to him expectantly. Samantha's left arm encircled Charlize's waist, while her right hand caressed her breasts. "Oh, yes, my dear Samantha," Charlize encouraged, intensifying her touch. Daniel didn't know what to do. For the moment it seemed that Charlize and Samantha were simply oblivious to his presence in the room, and he didn't mind that. He was enjoying this erotic spectacle. "Mmm," moaned Samantha, kissing Charlize. "Oh, good," whispered Charlize, sitting Daniel down on the king-sized bed. Samantha then turned away from Charlize and pressed her lips to Daniel's. She opened her mouth, and Daniel responded to her kiss. Oh, Charlize?" muttered Danielle after a moment. "Samantha, come here and take a look," urged Charlize. Samantha let go of Danielle's mouth. "She's doing it for the first time," Charlize announced to Danielle. This can't be, I can't." Danielle struggled to find the words. She's so good at... Did you hear that, darling?" Charlize chuckled with satisfaction. "He says you're great at it." "Mm-hmm," Samantha agreed. Danielle groaned with mixed feelings. "So, Mr. Daniel, are you just going to lie here and watch us all do it?" asked Samantha, lowering herself down next to him. "Well, you seem to be doing just fine without my help," admitted Daniel. "Come on, sloth," joked Charlize, snuggling up against him from the other side. "Oh, okay," Daniel sighed, making Samantha hiss, as he wrapped his arms around her and rolled her over onto her side. "No, no, bad boy," yelled Samantha cheerfully as Daniel made growling noises. "Charlize, help me!" Daniel easily laid Samantha on her back, propping her head up with two pillows. For a moment he lay completely on her body, savoring her softness. He gently kissed her lips and traveled down to her throat. Samantha shuddered with pleasure as his fingers slid gently over her skin. Samantha purred as Daniel kissed the top of her breasts. "Does it make you feel good? Does he make you happy?" asked Charlize to Samantha. Samantha's sudden piercing scream broke the silence. Charlize sharply pushed Daniel away and started swinging her fists, trying to throw punches at him. "Charlize, no! No!" screamed Samantha, knocking a wildly flailing Charlize onto the bed. Get out, you! I can't trust you! I trusted you, and you... Charlize yelled at Daniel. "Charlize, stop! He didn't hurt her!" Samantha protested. "Yes, he did! I heard you screaming!" sobbed Charlize, clinging to Samantha. Daniel was in just his shorts and jeans, trying to unbutton his shirt. Charlize put her arms around him, preventing him from doing so. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were hurting her," Charlize sobbed. "Look, maybe I should leave," Daniel muttered. "No. Oh, no, Danielle, please don't go," begged Samantha, climbing over the bed to them. "Please," Charlize pleaded, trying to hold him close. "Please, for me," begged Samantha, hugging Daniel to her side. The two women managed to pull Daniel toward non mantenutrinat disadbatsat. With a giggle, Charlize managed to tip Danielle over onto the bed. Samantha immediately began showering his face with kisses. He responded to Samantha's kiss as she began to nibble on his bottom lip. While Samantha kissed Daniel, Charlize pulled down and removed his jeans and boxers. "Are you ready?" Charlize asked Samantha. "I'm ready." "Are you sure?" asked Charlize, bending over and digging under the high bed. Danielle watched Charlize's pale buttocks jerk and move, trying to get something from under the bed. She let out a squeal and giggled when Daniel grabbed her ass. When he was 7 years old, Christopher wanted to be Frankenstein's monster for Halloween. But Christopher had outgrown the costume. Danielle was thrilled that the costume fit him, so Christopher tore the mask to shreds. His mother tried to glue it back together, but it was ruined. His mother punished Christopher. He couldn't go out that night. "Christopher beat the shit out of me like it was my fucking fault," Daniel thought, and the impending crisis passed. "I'm not going to hurt her. Daniel said to Charlize as their eyes met in the flickering candlelight. "You know what? If I killed that asshole, I bet no court in the country would convict me," Daniel thought as he continued to recall incidents from his childhood. "So, was your first time as you hoped it would be?" Charlize asked Samantha, and then kissed her before Samantha could respond. A few minutes later, Charlize woke Daniel up, holding out a glass of Sierra apple brandy to him. Daniel took the proffered glass and raised a toast to her and Samantha. Charlize brought several glasses of strawberry-flavored coconut water. Danielle squatted next to Samantha on a pile of pillows and quenched her thirst. When Samantha picked up her empty glass, Charlize carried the glasses back downstairs. Samantha leaned over and gently kissed Daniel's lips. She opened her mouth, and the lovers tasted each other. "Oh, great!" Charlize giggled, jumping up on the bed. "Look who's ready to play again!" Somehow, Daniel found himself between two beautiful naked women. The plaid was thick, and soon he was covered in sweat. The two warm bodies pressed tightly against him, and the plaid gave him no chance to cool down. Daniel was thrilled when Samantha expressed a desire to visit the restroom. He quickly threw back the heavy blanket and got up. Then he too made his way to the bathroom to relieve his full bladder. "Come on, we're cold," whispered Samantha, returning. "Yeah," Charlize sleepily agreed. "If I die, this would look good on my grave," Daniel thought. "Murdered by two sexy women in his time." Samantha made cherry brownies with a pecan praline filling. Charlize complained that Samantha was trying to make her fat. Daniel decided to replenish the calories he'd used up overnight and didn't complain about the sugary breakfast. "And who's ready for love?" asked Samantha as Daniel finished his second pie. "Oh, me," exclaimed Charlize. "Let me remind you, you all wanted to go to that Bricks," reminded Danielle. "But it's not until 2 o'clock, added Samantha. "Yeah, but I need to get home, shave, shower, put on fresh clothes," Daniel said. "Then we'll have lunch there and be there when Milt starts work." Okay, Charlize muttered. "And if I'm lucky, I'll come back here," Daniel promised, kissing Charlize. "We'll pick up where we left off." "Promise?" asked Samantha, getting comfortable with her hips up on the foam ramp. Daniel showered, shaved, and thought about taking a nap, but decided on a few cups of coffee instead. Charlize and Samantha were already ready and waiting for him outside. Inside Brick Pizza, cameras were filming the event. Daniel wasn't surprised when Milt Duhan, a local celebrity and chef from Channel 12's Cast Iron Stomach show, invited Charlize to help him sift through the dry ingredients. Samantha's braless breasts flashed across the TV screen as Milt showed her how to make the perfect, flaky crust. "The pies are $25 each," said Chelsea Duhan, a local reporter and Milt's wife. "And if you want a cast iron skillet, add another $50. "I'll have 2 fryers," Daniel ordered as the waitress approached. "Yes, sir, and thank you," she replied cheerfully. "Every sale goes to support St. Elizabeth's Animal Shelter." "Mom, see? I told you so! I told you it was him!" exclaimed the red-haired girl, bursting into the crowded restaurant and dragging a woman considerably older than herself behind her. "Miles! They're filming!" Amelia Stamey Llewellyn. Stamey rebuked her. "Hi, I always watch your show. I record it while I'm at school and then watch it at home," said Millie Stamey enthusiastically, stopping when Milt Duhan interrupted his actions, staring at the unexpected guest. "Miss, please sit down, please," stage manager Bill Henderson asked. "I love you so much," Millie whispered as her mom and Bill sat her down in a chair. "So, the stuffing is ready. I need a volunteer." Milt began as Bill signaled him to continue. Millie jumped up from her seat and beat him to it, shouting, "Me, yeah, I'll do it. He has to wash all the dishes, sweep and mop the floors. Oh, and we have one more volunteer," Milt continued as he smiled at Millie and the audience laughed. "I'm serious. Ask my mom. I always follow you," Millie babbled as she poured apple filling into the skillet. "You're the reason I became a chef. I'm going to LG's Culinary College. You should take some classes there, I swear." "Hey, Mom, does she ever take a break?" Milt asked Llewellyn. "If she does, it's only when I'm not looking." The older woman smiled a strained smile. Danielle, Samantha, and Charlize sat and watched the young and ebullient 18-year-old redhead chatting passionately with the older Milt Duhan. Samantha clung to Daniel's left arm, Charlize to his right. He stroked their thighs and smiled, receiving 2 kisses on their cheeks. Chelsea did a quick interview with everyone who had bought a pie. After learning that Danielle had bought them all a pie and a skillet each, she captured 2 enthusiastic kisses on camera. As she left, Charlize suggested that the waitress buy a 3rd pie and skillet and give them to that adorable red-haired girl and her mother. She urged the waitress not to tell either Stamey's mother or daughter where the treats had come from. Back at the condo, Samantha quickly sliced 3 pieces of pie and added an ice cream scoop to each. Yawn. I'm tired. Pie always makes me so tired. Charlize, eh? Samantha asked. Oh, yes, yawning. Pie? I don't know if I can even make it up the stairs, Charlize mumbled. Danielle? Yeah. No, not really. Daniel teased as Samantha pulled up her t-shirt and exposed her beautiful breasts. See, said Charlize, throwing off her shirt as well. You're so tired you don't even realize what you're saying. Yeah, I guess I do, Danielle smiled and followed the 2 naked girls up the stairs. Monday morning, Daniel walked down the stairs a little sluggishly. He had to stop by Kimball, take a quick shower, and shave before rushing back to Bender. He was 28 minutes late, but fortunately his department consisted of only 1 person. During the coffee break, Charlize joked with him, asking if he was too tired. Then she reminded him that it was Monday, and for the Baum household, that meant red beans and rice. Tuesday morning, Daniel rushed back to work, putting together a suit and shirt for the evening. On Thursday morning, Harry himself called Daniel into his office. With some pause, he announced that a complaint had been received that Daniel had allegedly used his position to insist on a sexual relationship with a subordinate. Inform Bradley Whitaker that Charlize Baum is an assistant manager in the Boyd Investment Group department. Daniel smiled. I have no authority over her or her department. There is not the slightest coercion in our relationship. We had to find that out, Harry admitted, looking guilty. Oh, I understand. But maybe you should follow up with Miss Baum, Danielle joked. Why don't you just move? Asked Samantha Thursday night, as Daniel laid out his costume for Friday afternoon. Where are we going tomorrow night? How about going bowling again? Suggested Charlize. The idea of going go-karting after dinner at Mom's restaurant was met with approval. In the end, a video arcade where Daniel was able to beat Charlize and Samantha on the track also drew cheers. On Tuesday, just before lunch, Charlize burst into Daniel's office and playfully pushed him out of his chair, beginning to rapidly type something on the keyboard. You have to watch this, Charlize exclaimed as the screen began streaming video from Channel 12. Here I am with Millie Stamey and we're making our quick and dirty chicken cacciatore. Milt Duhan's voice came on, and a glowing Millie Stamey appeared in the frame next to him. Danielle and Charlize were having lunch at the table in the study, watching the broadcast of the show. Charlize immediately sent a link to the video to Samantha's cell phone. Sure, she'd want the chicken cacciatore recipe. Seriously, why don't you just move? Asked Samantha as she made an Italian omelet on Saturday morning. Thinking about it, Charlize whispered. 2 beautiful women taking care of you, making love to you, feeding you, caring for you. Samantha agreed, placing a plate in front of her. After the 4th weekend, Daniel agreed to leave his apartment for 30 days. He packed his clothes and put a few memorabilia in a separate box. He still had to decide what to do with the furniture. Maybe Charmaine will like this table, Daniel thought. Charmaine Hebert, Daniel's cousin through his mother's younger sister, had happily agreed to bring the table and 6 dining chairs, as well as the living room furniture, a sofa, armchair, nightstands, coffee table, and 2 brass lamps. And the bedroom set, asked Danielle of the beautiful and plump 18-year-old girl while her 2 male friends helped her. The bed isn't big enough, Charmaine smiled. Yeah, one of the young men added. Oh, Danielle stammered, noticing the looks Charmaine and her friends were exchanging. If you weren't my cousin, I'd tell you there's room in our bed, Charmaine admitted, involuntarily emphasizing her form. But we're here, Danielle hastily reminded the beautiful brunette. I think Alondra will like the bed. Alondra Anders, Danielle's 19-year-old niece, along with her boyfriend and 2 or 3 other couples, were renting a double-wide trailer. Jonathan Anders and Angelica Lewis were married the Saturday after graduating from St. Thomas Aquinas High School. They often joked about Michelle Anders being born 5 months premature in November. Saturday morning after the move, as Daniel put away the winter clothes in the guest bedroom and arranged his belongings in the guest bathroom, he watched curiously as Samantha and Charlize headed to the bathroom. They usually showered after breakfast and often invited him to join them in the large shower. "So, let's wait 30 minutes and—" Charlize began as they came out of the bathroom. "Oh my God, that long?" Samantha marveled, climbing back into bed. "Hey, what are you doing?" Charlize asked Daniel. Nothing much. Just lying here," Daniel smiled. "Really? Me too," Charlize exclaimed, clutching his morning boner in her hand. Finally, Daniel found out that Samantha was pregnant. Both girls hoped so, which is why Charlize was so excited when Samantha invited Daniel to the condominium after their date at the bowling alley. Samantha was in her most fertile period that day. Yeah, I'm going to be a mom," Samantha sobbed, overwhelmed with joy. "What do you think about that, Daddy?" Charlize asked and kissed Daniel before he could answer. There was no breakfast, and lunch wasn't served until 2:30 in the afternoon. Samantha was in fuzzy socks and an apron, and quickly made pancakes with cheese and roasted vegetables. 2 weeks after Samantha announced her pregnancy, Daniel looked up when Charlize knocked on his door. He smiled, but immediately lost the smile when Charlize silently pointed to his office door. "Yes. Yeah, sure, you can close it," Daniel agreed. "You know, I haven't been feeling very well the last couple days," Charlize said as she lowered herself into the chair in front of his desk. "Yeah, Daniel began. "Anyway, I just got back from Dr. Turner's," Charlize muttered in a low, shaky voice. "Is everything okay?" Danielle asked, his face devoid of color. No, it can't be," Charlize cried. "Is it cancer?" Danielle squeezed out with difficulty, kneeling down next to her chair and hugging her. "I'm pregnant," Charlize sobbed. "You... what?" Danielle stammered. "I'm pregnant. It's almost 2 months now," Charlize cried. Daniel did the math in his mind, realizing that both Charlize and Samantha had both gotten pregnant that first weekend he'd been in their bed. He smiled and hugged her tighter. "That's wonderful," Danielle said happily. "Oh my God, Samantha, she's going to kill me," Charlize wailed. "How could this happen?" "Well, you know, Dad and Mom—" Danielle started to joke, but stopped when he saw her anguished look. "I understand how it happened, but how could it have happened? It wasn't supposed to happen. It was only supposed to happen to Samantha." "Yeah, but this is fantastic. Me, Charlize Baum, me. Will you marry me?" Danielle laughed happily. "Wait, what?" Charlize asked, looking at him in surprise. "Will you marry me?" Daniel repeated. "What? Danielle, I can't," Charlize stammered. "I realize we can't have a church wedding. I realize we're both divorced and—" Daniel began. Danielle, I can't marry you. I'm already married," said Charlize. "What? But you said you divorced Sean," Danielle objected. Sean, yes, we divorced, but Danielle, I'm with Samantha. We're together," Charlize said with difficulty. Danielle sank heavily to the floor. Charlize's lips continued to move, but Daniel couldn't hear a word. Slowly he rose to his feet and dazedly opened his office door. Walking through it, he sat down at his desk. "I, Mrs. Baum, ask you to leave my office," Daniel ordered without turning to her. Inside, Daniel felt all his insides clench. He was being used by his wife Betta. He was only a means to her ends. She craved status, marriage, an expensive ring, and public recognition. He victimized her by providing her with all of these things. After he provided her with everything she wanted, she decided to move on. After their divorce, Daniel found out that she had experimented with group sex and lesbian liaisons. It was just another adventure for her. All both of these women wanted now was a child. And when Samantha and Charlize conceived a child, Daniel was more unnecessary than ever before. He was disposable. 10 minutes later, Daniel sent an email to Harry Boyd, naming his personal business. Then he left the building. Entering Red's sports bar, Daniel sat down at a table and caught the attention of a waitress. She smiled flirtatiously, showing her bare breasts. "A cold St. Elizabeth's light and a plate of wings. They should be hot," Danielle ordered, ignoring her artificial breasts. The apartment was empty. He had 2 more days before his lease was up. Perhaps his mother would let him stay at her place. "Do you want a drink?" asked Charlize, appearing by the table. "How did you find me?" asked Daniel glumly. "I followed you," Charlize admitted. "Not many people drive classic Mustangs in this town." Danielle was silent. Charlize approached the waitress and ordered an unsweetened iced tea. When the drink was placed on the table, she looked at Danielle. "I know what you're thinking, or I guess assuming," Charlize said. "And what happens when you assume?" Danielle tried to smile. "I know that you think that me and Samantha, used you," Charlize continued. "Well, aren't we?" asked Danielle bitterly. "Isn't it?" The wings were presented, and Charlize tried to take one. Danielle stopped her with a hand. "Honey, look, they're still hot. You'd better wait," Danielle cautioned. "See?" Charlize smiled. "Even if you think we used you, you still—" "I give up." "What did I do?" asked Danielle. "You called me cute. Even though you're mad, you called me, and you just helped me not get burned," said Charlize, taking some celery off her plate. "Danielle, Samantha and I were discussing in vitro fertilization. Seeing doctors," Charlize continued. "And then I went to dinner with you. There you never once called your ex-wife. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but—" "Betta," Danielle replied, taking a bite out of a carrot. "Do you see that? Even now, you could have named her something else." "But you didn't. I came home and told Samantha I found a father for our baby," Charlize said, dipping a wing into the sauce. "Yay for me," Daniel muttered. "I told her I found a real man, and our baby will have a father who will be there for him and teach him how to ride a bike, teach her how to rollerblade." Charlize continued. "Well, first the father himself needs to learn to rollerblade if I'm going to teach her." Daniel smiled tensely. "And please tell me our kid isn't going to play soccer." "Oh, God, kill me! How can you run around so much and never score a goal?" "Danielle, we didn't use you. We chose you," Charlize said, whistling at the spicy heat of the wing. "Hey, waitress." "Yes, ma'am," the young woman replied. "I need to place an order for the wings," Charlize pointed out. "Split the bill?" "No, put it on my tab," Daniel said. "Danielle, we were about to go to the clinic, but then I met the most wonderful man. Watching you score ball after ball, I prayed that Samantha would love you. Praying for you is serious," Charlize said, intertwining her fingers with his. She ate most of the wings. Daniel tucked the container with the second order away to keep for her and Samantha. He ordered sliders and potato skins with bacon himself, but Charlize ate most of it again. "Please come home. This is our home. You, me, and Samantha," Charlize begged. "Without you, it's just a place, not a home." Daniel shrugged slowly, admitting defeat. Charlize squealed happily and kissed him. They paid the bill and walked out of the bar together. "I'll take that order with me," Charlize said as she packed the rest of her food. "No, I'll make sure Samantha gets it," Daniel smiled. "If she doesn't eat it all, I'll finish it." We love you," Charlize promised.